Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 203 of Salvaggio and Cratty here for you again. 7 o'clock on the dot, July 31st, Wednesday, last day of July, almost into August. We got, I almost said Bruins. I guess I'm just that excited and chomping at the bit. We got Red Sox, we got Patriots, a little bit of hockey stuff, but nothing we have to urgently cover, just some RFA business, a couple other small things. So we'll get to hockey in the near or maybe a little distant future, maybe if we get a Jeremy Swayman contract sooner rather than later. But just RFA business, stuff like that, contract extensions, nothing too crazy. So it'll be baseball and football tonight. Yeah, trade deadline is passed. The Sox are having ebbs and flows lately. They're trying to win this in the bottom of the ninth right now. We'll see if that happens. Maybe it'll take like 15 innings. You never know.
Hope
But
not.
hopefully it doesn't. We've seen Sims today already, and yeah, it's been a solid competitive baseball game, exciting baseball game, and yeah, we're on to the post trade deadline part of the season and crunch time. So how are you feeling, Ryan?
I'm feeling good. I know there were some people that maybe were a little not I don't think upset's the right word with the Red Sox trade deadline, but I'm sure there were some people out there that maybe thought they could have done more. I for one am just happy that they actually picked a lane for a change and they decided to buy Craig Breslow a couple weeks ago. He said that we talked about, is that realistic? What's it going to look like when, when they say they're going to buy? And then a couple weeks ago too, he backed it up by, saying that the needs of this team are clear. Kind of went into it in one of his either pre or post game interviews. And he kept his word, which I'm happy. We've seen, past regimes kind of, as we've talked about with Hein Bloom in the past, say all the right things, but then not be able to back them up. Or go out and make a decision on whether they want to buy, whether they want to sell, whatever it may be. I'm glad Craig Breslow decided to just straight up buy, didn't really sell anything off, as we'll get into a little later. At least in my opinion, really of anything of any value, except maybe Nick York. Like we'll discuss him, of course. Maybe that's a guy you could have put in another deal um, for a bigger package later on down the road. But there were reasons why some of these guys got moved. Um, how are you feeling about this deadline? I know we're gonna do more of a deadline specific approach a little later, but just some early thoughts. We kind of start with, of course, the Red Sox related stuff and the moves that they made.
Yeah, so I was kind of I kind of see the haul they got as a package. Like I'm not gonna act like I knew every guy they were gonna get, but like
Mm-hmm.
these guys feel like as a collective, a group of guys that I would have or just around about expected the Sox to get something like a semblance of. Sorry, this little error message off to the side. Um, like, are they the craziest names? No, but like that's kind of what we wanted. Like, we wanted to see willingness for them to add. I think there are some additions here that could really work out, and some interesting reasons to acquire certain players. But um, pitching was attacked. That's good. You have three guys on the shelf right now in your bullpen that could be coming back before the end of the season, but you need reinforcements. Maybe we'll see Liam Hendricks at some point too. He'll be kind of like a deadline edition. Cautious will be like a deadline edition in a way, or whenever Cautious comes back into the lineup. But I have no problems with like overwhelming problems with any of the players they got. I have no overwhelming problems with any of the prospects they gave up. The York thing is like, sure, you'd like him in a bigger deal, but clearly they like what they can do with Quinn Priester, who they got for him, and he's only 23, former top 100 guy. So you hope that they have a plan, and Andrew Bailey is a part of that, and it works. Um, I was wondering about a guy like Nico Cavadis, the Notre Dame kid. Didn't realize he was 25 already, but like kind of like a guy 25 already. Uh, you can throw him into a package if you want. He's got some good power, but a guy that was expendable. Overall, other than that, the kid they gave up for Sims seems like he could be decent down the road, but he's very young and he's in like high A, so you give that kid up every day of the week in this
Mm-hmm.
situation.
For sure.
So
Yep.
yeah, like so overall, like I have no problems. I like the fact that there was an effort to add, and whether it works or not, you can't say they did it. You could say they could have done better, but you could say that a lot of times in the game of baseball. So, with any team really. So I'm cool with it. Like I'm gonna let it ride. There's a big battle ahead. There's gonna be a lot of tense games in the next month or two. So I'm excited, and we'll see if it starts tonight with them getting back on track with a win after a loss last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're kind of in a weird spot right now with the play of late, and we talked about it in the last week's show. I don't think it's going to last, and I think these moves, as we haven't
It
seen in
aged
years.
well. When I posted the TikTok, they had that huge win.
You
So
did, it did, yep. But yeah, I mean, I
then they
think
lost last
just
night, so it's all good.
that's true. Yeah, it kind of it evened itself out in the end. But yeah, I mean, I think as we've talked about before, just the fact that they added at the deadline could be something that could energize this team and turn their play around a little bit of late. And they made a couple of mistakes today, but nothing too crazy. Last night was another one of
Rough.
these games like earlier in the year where it's like, all right, like you look stupid out there with some of the decisions you're making. But yeah, I kind of tipped my hand a little bit. I'm with you. I like the moves they made. There were a couple of head scratchers at the start. James Paxton, we kind of knew that was a foregone conclusion, or could have really assumed that was a foregone conclusion. We talked about him last week. Made all the sense in the world. Again, you give up nothing to get him, a minor league infielder in Moises Bolivar, but you give him up to the Dodgers, so the Dodgers will probably make that kid an all-star in like 10 years or so down the line, because that's just what they do. Paxton, you know, wasn't great last night, but he wasn't bad again. He had that inning where the Red Sox had what, 2 or 3 errors in one inning again, which was, nothing really he could do about that. But just getting the rotation depth is obviously good, and the guy that you know what he's going to give you. Because obviously you had him last year. The Jansen one was a little interesting. Danny Jansen was acquired, I believe, on Saturday. From the Blue Jays, they give up Cutter Coffee, not Cutter Crawford. That would have been a hell of an
That would be
overpay.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah. The 28th prospect in the
Cutter
organization.
Gauthier. They get traded
Yeah,
from sport
that would be
from
even
hockey to
crazier.
baseball.
Yep. But yeah, you give
Horses
the
win.
15th prospect in your organization and Edison Polino, the 28th, and I did it again, Cutter Coffee, and Gilberto Batista, who was unranked. Jansen, again, on paper, not the flashes of ads, but he's been good so far. He had 2 hits again today. I think 2 hits in his debut against the Yankees.
He went, if you saw my tweet, OB Jansen, he went backwards like OBJ catch with
Did he? I
he
did not
lost
see that.
he lost the ball like in the sky. He must have miscalculated things.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We got a
Okay.
chance here. First and
Runner on
third.
third. In first, yep, ducks in the pond. Yeah, he like had to backtrack to get it, and he like legit OBJ'd backwards and fell and caught it. It was sick.
Okay.
You'll see it on Twitter.
I'll have to check that highlight out.
Yeah, but just quickly on the Jansen thing, I'm kind of warming up to it. I kind of, with the stuff that came out, hated it. I hated that they were aggressively pursuing him, but if they wanted to essentially replace Reese McGuire with him, it's okay. Like, just needs to kind of not
it's an
be
upgrade.
ass, which he can be ass, but like I'm not gonna like. I can't get too worked up because they have Connor Wong. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
you
and
just gotta hope he isn't a catastrophe.
exactly, and it was weird at the time because obviously we couldn't see the future, didn't know they were going to DFA McGuire. So I kind of figured, all right, Jansen will be the right-handed bat that replaces Westbrook on the roster or something like that, and then I'll roll with 3 catches because I can't remember who it might have been. Milliken, it might have been Red Sox stats. It kind of had the breakdown of the Red Sox catchers over the last couple months, and Wong had been scuffling before the last couple games because he was playing pretty much every day. We knew McGuire was basically nothing at the plate at this point. Jansen, again, not the heaviest of hitters. But as you said, an upgrade over McGuire. Would have liked another right-handed bat to go along with him. But if he's going to be in there every couple of days, and again, he's been productive so far, kills lefties, 273 against lefties that was coming out of last night. I'm assuming it probably went up today with another 2-hit performance. But like you said, can't really be mad about that one because they didn't give up a whole lot to get him. Again, your 15th, 28th, and an unranked prospect for a platoon catcher. Like, I'm not going to be mad about that. And again, it's worked out so far. The Priester one, as you said, was an interesting one. I personally love this deal because, how many times have we talked about, the Red Sox, they have a ton of, positional depth, but you don't have any young controllable pitchers. That'd be something, that'd be a nice way to try to, fill your organization with that. And they do that with this move. Priester, a former top 100 guy, hasn't really hit his stride rather with the Pirates yet. A 5.04 ERA this year. I think he had an ERA over 7 last year. Red Sox have already optioned him to Worcester, so he's going to be a work in progress guy. But again, like, you needed young, controllable pitching. This was a guy that had a ton of upside, and a lot of people are already saying, you get him in the Breslow and Bailey situation and the analytics and stuff there. This is a guy that may be a pretty good find for the Red Sox. And Nick York, we talked about him, I feel like, on the last 2 shows, as a guy that you need to move him. He doesn't have a role here. He's a Rule 5, or was going to be a Rule 5 guy next year, so you would have had to make a spot in your 40-man for him. And that's kind of the theme with a couple of these trades is they move. I called it, trimming some fat off the roster for next year because you're going to have to make a couple of decisions on a couple of these guys. with, York was playing well. I'm not going to deny that. He was hitting the ball in the minors, but again, didn't really have a spot on this team. You've seen
Yeah,
some other guys kind of step up. I can't remember the prospect that's tearing it up in the minors right now. I
Christian
mentioned him.
Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell. Thank you. I was gonna say I mentioned him last week and then drew blank. But yeah, he's kind of overtaken Nick York a little bit. Again, second baseman can play multiple positions. So you lose
So
Nick York.
I
Go
think
ahead.
with guys like York and Coffee being moved, we've talked after like a few drafts in the last few years, like such an emphasis on middle infielders, especially shortstops. And whether it's like post draft episode or just like anytime in general, I feel like we've talked a couple times like, okay, like you stack up certain positions. Sometimes it's best player on your board.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's slot value, whatever. How important that is once you get into like out of the first round, I don't know. Um, with a guy like Coffee, you kind of wondered at a certain point, like, okay, you have to wonder if some of these guys are eventually just going to get traded and all
Yeah.
this is going to work out. Like, you don't want to draft a guy to trade him, but like, if you have to, that can be a good thing. So
Hmm.
it just shows, like, in this case, that they have what they need above those guys. So I guess it works out. But the Priester thing is interesting because it also goes into like needing young pitching.
Yep.
You got a guy that wasn't probably going to make his way on your roster in York. All the best to him, but it just is what it is. You get a guy that a lot of people talk about Andrew Bailey's ability with pitchers, and you wonder if next year he's in the mix and you can turn him into something. And I'm not saying he's Tanner Houck, and I assume there's a lot of differences here, but like pitchers can late bloom here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
I would
maybe
say
in a
that's the
couple
position
years,
that,
maybe he in a couple years he's pretty good. Maybe next year he's pretty good. Like even like halfway through the season if it takes that long.
yeah.
So
And I mean,
it's
like,
worthwhile to take.
absolutely. And again, like, not all, projections pan out, not all prospects pan out, but like I said, this was a top 100 guy in the past. He was one of Pittsburgh's top pitchers before the Skeenses, the Kellers of the world came along. So this was going to be one of the guys, or maybe not Keller, but definitely Skeens, obviously. um so there was a lot of high hopes for this kid. Again, hasn't really panned out. Again, it's Pittsburgh, so you kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like, I know Skeens has pitched really well. um but it is what it is. And again, if they're willing to take a chance on that, you give up a guy that wasn't going to make your roster, as you said, that I'm perfectly fine with it. The amount of people, I saw a couple people that said, oh, the Red Sox, what are you doing? You should have traded. If you're going to move a second baseman, you should have traded Vaughn Grissom. To that, it's like, that people need value in these trades, you morons. Like Nick York's value is probably at an all-time high right now. And Grissom, who's played like 10 games this season's value is at an all-time low. So like, be
Yeah.
realistic about that. You weren't going to move that guy. And again, like, I'm sure that those are people that I can see the argument. Maybe you want to wait and package Nick York in a bigger deal, maybe in the offseason. But like I said, the guy's value has never been higher.
Yeah.
Like, you move him for the best available player. If somebody comes calling, and Pittsburgh may have done that. I don't know if the Red Sox reached out to them, of course, or vice versa. But again, like, maybe Nick York comes back in a couple of years and is a good second baseman for the Pirates. But I feel like in a lot of these times, a lot of these prospects don't tend to pan out or really come back to burn you. So again, not going to lose sleep over moving a guy that you had plenty of in the minors, and the majors
Yeah.
as well. You got a bunch of second basemen for a position that you really needed in, like you said, young controllable pitching.
And there's always a scenario like if they pan out, unless they're like a superstar, you're like, okay, like our team's doing fine, like
Yeah,
isn't the end of the world.
exactly. Like I
So
heard, I think it might have been Rob Bradford last night on the Nesson had their trade deadline coverage. He kind of said like, okay, like you look at maybe this is not a similar type of prospect, but we talked about this when we did a couple of guys we wanted a couple weeks back, and I did the game of like the last couple of Red Sox acquisitions, who they gave up and where are they now type of thing, and he brought up Santiago Espinal was an all star for 1 year when you traded him for Steve Pierce. Um, and now he's a good major league player, but he's nothing too crazy. It's not a guy that you're really kicking yourself giving up Santiago Espinal. Like Nick York, I feel like could fall into that category as well. Like Pirates need middle infield help, a bat. He comes up in a couple of years or two, and plays well for him. You're like, all right, you feel good for that kid, but not going to lose sleep again because you have 10 other second base prospects that are in the works.
yeah, especially when you have guys just across the board, even not positionally for all these guys. Like now you got Montgomery, you've got that Zanatello kid, you've got
Yep.
Mayer, Teal, and
Mikey
Anthony. Like
Ramiro's apparently hitting the baseball.
Mikey
I know he
Ramiro,
profiles as a shortstop, but
he gets forgotten about too because like
Mhm.
everybody like thinks of reasonably so like the Mayers, the Anthonys, and the Teals.
Yep.
But yeah, Mikey Ramiro too. Like it just kind of adds the whole shortstop and middle infield thing too. When you have a guy some people probably forget about, and
Mhm.
that's not for like any bad reasons. Just add another guy to the mix. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, but Lucas Sims, Ryan, I didn't really know who Lucas Sims was, so I'm gonna defer to you.
Yeah, and
Um, you made a funny reference to the MLB
I
the show
joked.
as
Yep,
well.
I
Yeah,
joked to you. I said it on Twitter. He's a guy because he's nasty in the show like every year for some reason. Again, it's not like he's a excuse me a bad Major League Baseball player, and the show just doesn't know their ratings. Like every year, it seems like he's a guy you trade for, you have on your roster, and he has like a sub 2 ERA and is one of the best relievers in the game. So every chance I get to do a franchise with whatever team, I'll try to put Luke Sims on my roster in some way, shape, or form. And maybe again, like I texted you, maybe I kind of spoke that into existence or manifested that because the Red Sox go out and get a pretty decent reliever. Made an appearance today, excuse me, pitched 2/3 of an inning, got out of a bases loaded jam that he put himself into with a walk. Obviously came in for Bayo and pitched out of that jam and gave the Red Sox a chance to win this game. 43 games this year, a 3.57 ERA, 35 and a third innings of work. Little wild at times, 40 strikeouts and 20 walks, but it's something the Red Sox obviously wanted to target was veteran, late inning guys with Sims and then Garcia, of course, who we'll get to in a second. I like the move. Again, you give up your 29th prospect, which is really nothing. So I can't hate the move. And again, I like the Craig Breslow in this move and the Garcia move. Targeted these veteran guys who have been around the block a little bit, have pitched in multiple roles, late in games, save situations. Because I think Sims has a couple of saves in his career. I know Garcia has at least 3 or 4 this year. And we're seeing it night after night with the youth of this bullpen. Guys are starting to get tired. Guys are maybe hitting their inning mark, and haven't been pitching well. You get Sims, you get Garcia. That brings a little bit of stability. And like you said, with guys maybe coming back, like a Chris Martin down the line. I know Slayton's young, but he's been good for you. And then Liam Hendricks, like you could be looking at a pretty good bullpen once all these guys are healthy. And if Sims and Garcia pan out, and like I said, I think they will because they've been both pretty solid options this year for the Reds and the Angels.
yeah. It kind of feels like maybe it's just because I don't know who Lucas Sims is, but kind of like one of those guys that feels like a Breslow type of guy, like analytically in
Finds
a
them, and
way.
yeah,
Yeah, so maybe someone not a lot of people were thinking of. The one thing that was concerning that I sent you, games at Cincinnati this year,
the
he has
home
a
and away
point,
splits, yeah.
yeah, 0.83 ERA in 24 games, 22 and 8 K to walk ratio, and everywhere else outside of Cincinnati, 19 games, 7.90 ERA and an 18-12 K to walk ratio. So
That's not
hopefully
great, but
that's well, I don't want to say that's not a problem because he's not going to be playing
mhm.
at the Red Stadium that much anymore. um, just something to notice. I was trying to find one other tweet I saw too from like the Reds version of Red Sox stat that was a little
Mhm.
more like analytic based, but I can't find it.
Well, maybe
Um,
it's just a home and away thing because he's got an
yeah,
ERA of 0 at Fenway Park so far this season. So,
it's good.
yep.
Yeah. I did not know Luis Garcia was 37,
Hmm.
but he sounds like
Been
a
around.
solid
Yep.
player. Um, like I said earlier, you gave up Cavadis, like good kid with power, but he's 25 years old and he's unranked in your prospect pool.
Yep.
Matthew Lugo seems decent, but like expendable guy. Ryan Zephyr Jean, I'm gonna guess that's how you say it. And Jefferson
Hmm.
Vargas. Didn't know he'd be a guy you give a 4 prospects for, but like
Right. Yeah.
nothing to really like lose your mind over, it seems. And I'm okay with this because the more and more I hear about Garcia, I'm intrigued. So
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and it falls into the same thing. If you, like I said earlier, you trim some fat off your roster. I think Lugo would have been a Rule 5 guy next year. Cavadis might have been as well. Um,
that's right.
Zephyr,
Maybe.
yeah, I think Zephyrhan was a guy we talked about a couple weeks ago because he came up in I can't remember who the trade was for, but he was in one of like the mock trades. He might have been a Rule 5 guy as well. There were like I said, 3 or 4 of these guys you would have had to make decisions on next season. And Matthew Lugo's had a nice year, but I think was awful last year. Either hurt a lot last year, or just couldn't hit really a whole lot. He was maybe seen as a guy because he's played a ton of positions this year in the minors, maybe a utility bench bat type of thing. But again, like if he's primarily an outfielder, you've got plenty of those. All your top prospects, or 2 of your 4 top prospects now are outfielders, with Anthony and Montgomery. And then of course Blaze, who like we talked about last week, maybe you dangle him, but they hold on to him, which we're fine with, of course. Um, If Lugo's an infielder, those guys are all blocked. Cavadas was never going to make this team. Like you said, 25-year-old first baseman. You have Casas, like both lefty power hitters. So he was really never a true option for this team. Zephyr, again, a guy that was having a pretty good season in Worcester. Maybe a guy, if the bullpen continued to struggle, maybe you call him up. But again, like the Angels know the pitching they can get. So you get him, you get Vargas. Those are nice moves for them. And again, Garcia brings that veteran caliber arm into the bullpen, a guy who's done a whole lot of things. He's closed games before. 4 saves this year with the Angels, a 3.71 ERA. Was really good a couple of years ago for the Padres. I'm with you. I was a little surprised that they ended up giving up 4 prospects for him, but again, if it's guys you're never going to see at the big league level, like you're fine with that. If you can get a guy that can help you now, and I think Garcia can definitely be that guy as well.
Yeah. Maybe this was like kind of in the same camp as a Sims guy, like for a Breslow guy, because I feel like I didn't look super hard, so maybe I'm wrong, but like not a ton of buzz around him until like just randomly one day, like this guy being available. But of course, he is
Little
on the
bit,
Angels who suck again, predictably. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a guy that once it became known that he was available, Craig Breslow coveted, and I'm gonna hear him out on that because it seems like a decent player. Trade deadline grades, I'm going to go with a B, and a B might be slightly high, but I like the foundation of what they've done. There's nothing too crazy going on. These are plus ads, most likely. They're reasonable ads, like we've talked about ad nauseum at this point. They didn't need to go get a Jack Flaherty. They didn't need to get a Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet didn't even get moved, which I think Jeff Passan or someone in MLB media predicted like a week and a half ago. So whoever did that, good on them.
I think it might have been Passan, yeah.
Might have been Passan, so that's pretty good intel
There's some inner workings to that
there
that I
Chicago,
didn't know about with Crochet. That we'll get into in a little bit. Maybe a spoiler for the 5 winners and losers that I have from the deadline. Because after some of the stuff that came out about Crochet, I'm not all that surprised he didn't get moved. To be honest, yeah, we'll talk about that a little later. It's a
my
nice
Kopech prediction. My gut feeling, my crystal ball was not correct. He went to the Dodgers. That also makes sense too. Like guy that can throw gas. Got a little like attitude to him, if I remember correctly. Feels like a good like postseason pitcher that surely doesn't belong with the Chicago White Sox.
No, wasted talent.
Yeah, so I'm okay with it. Like, obviously, no one was expecting them realistically to do this, but they didn't give up Mayer and Anthony Anthony, despite people stupidly asking apparently for them in deals for relievers. Like, go find the nearest bridge and jump off it if you wanted one of them. Like, seriously. Joking, of course, not being dead serious. It's just an expression. That's crazy that people thought that. Like, it could just be like a start high and move your way down scenario. But if anybody earnestly thought they were going to get Marcelo Mayer or Roman Anthony, you're a fucking moron in the Red Sox squad.
Devers just walked it off. Yep.
Let's go.
1-0, or not 1-0 post trade. The 1-1 post trade deadlines. I forgot. Yep.
1-1. Quick way to end it. Bottom of the 10th, Rafael Devers off the monster, and yeah, they're throwing water on him, just having a good time. That's great. It's a good win.
Big series win because Seattle's, it's gonna
mix with them.
It's gonna come down to Houston or them in the division. So that's a huge win for the Red Sox.
Yeah, so they're in the mix, very close to that second wild card. Might be tied for it now. Maybe not. Maybe a game behind. Last time I checked before the end of the game last night, they were a game out of the wild card. So yeah, overall, I'm gonna wait and see on Garcia and Sims a little bit too before I get too high and low. But I'm pretty neutrally at a B. Thought about a B minus. C plus wouldn't have felt right. So it was either B or B minus, and I felt like being nice, giving them a B.
Yeah, I mean, they did a little bit of everything. Like, I think a C would have been like, okay, they maybe added one arm and like a minor piece here. Like that would have been like a Garcia Priester. And then like, all right, you're kind of leaving yourself available for, more positions. So you give them, you did something, but you didn't do a whole lot. I'm right there with you. I went one step a little less. I want to be minus just because I would have liked to have seen, Jansen not be your only offensive addition. Like as the day went on, you heard maybe a couple rumblings of Ibanez in Detroit. I'm like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't have hated that if you got him. or maybe Mark Canha went, I think, at the very last minute to the Giants, which was an interesting move. Come to find out, he's from the Bay Area, so that would be why they made that move. A nice little move there for Mark Canha. You send him back home. So like I would have liked another bat just to kind of have, again, Jamie Westbrook's been a nice story, but you take him off the roster for a better option. You do that every day. And they obviously did that today. They ended up calling up, I think, Nick Sogard from Worcester to see if he can give you something. But everything else I like I said, I like that Breslow picked a lane and clearly identified what this team needed. And veteran bullpen arms, you guys with innings that have pitched in big moments before, to kind of take the leeway off of some of these young guys like Zach Kelly, who's been struggling. Bernardino is kind of burnt out a little bit. That's the other thing too, why I gave him a B-. If you were going to go bullpen arms, I would have liked another lefty just to kind of have that option. So maybe you pick.
Coming back though.
Yeah, but he's a righty.
Wait, what? Oh, I thought Slayton was lefty. Disregard.
Nope. Yep. It's okay. It happens. But yeah, like if I had to choose one of Sims or Garcia and a lefty, I probably would have done that. But again, they identified their needs. They ended up being proactive and getting a couple of guys that I think can really help this bullpen. The Jansen move has worked out really well so far. Again, I think he's got 4 hits in 2 games, which is good to see. He's not going to play every day. You're not going to need him to. And if you do, it's a guy that I think is more reliable and with the bat in his hands than Reese McGuire. Obviously, no hate towards Reese McGuire, but it just is what it is. So yeah, I'm happy with the deadline.
Tough way to go out for Reese here too.
It really is. Like,
did you notice? I didn't even see what happened here. The whole thing. It was like the 7th inning. Like Cora came out of the dugout. The first base umpire kind of looked to me like Cal Quantrill. I was like, oh my god,
really?
What the hell? Just something.
Cal Quantrill, who the Red Sox wanted to go and fight after the game. If people missed that, like there were a couple of Red Sox chomping at the bit. 100% Duran was the one looking for the dirt.
Wanted to
looking for the clubhouse. Yeah,
I'll be shocked if Duran doesn't punch someone in the face in a game someday.
He's
really will. Really
got a little bit of
shocked.
Say it with all the love in the world. Little bit of psycho vibes to him. Like,
you need a psycho
in a good way.
He is establishing himself as a leader. You're gonna need a guy that's a leader that can also throw a punch, whether it's necessary or not.
All right.
Within reason. You don't want to see him like sucker someone, but
yeah, you also don't want to lose. You also don't want to lose one of your best players for like 5+ games. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But I mean, it'd be fun in the moment.
It's good to have that guy in the chamber. They're like, you're like, what's he gonna do? Like he's,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with this deadline. I'm with you. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is something we talked about a lot. As you said, they were never going to add the Screwballs, the Crochets of the world. So I'm fine again with what they were able to do. And like I said earlier, a lot of these guys, prospect wise, if they're people that you gave up a lot from the farm system. No, you really didn't. You gave up a bunch of guys that were going to be Rule 5 guys next year. So instead of losing them in that draft for nothing, why not try to get something for them that can help your team this year? And that's exactly what they did. So I'm perfectly fine with it. Like I said, B- for me and a B for you. I think we're pretty even keel on both of these.
Absolutely. Now we go. It's now we go season. Yep. We're almost in August. Tomorrow. Let's get into winners and losers. I will defer to you. But I will say I did have a discussion about Brent Rooker, who's at the start here, with the Athletics as an honorable mention. I didn't know until earlier today that he's got team control to 2028.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So that's got, on top of the stats and the power, got to be part of the reason. He's probably costing a fucking shit ton on the trade market. Maybe that's an off-season thing. So I just wanted to point that out because I did not know that. So
I didn't either, but I'm going to keep him as an honorable mention. I had him last year for the same exact reasons. And like you said, it is, for me, honorable mention. Brent Rooker, once again, he's having a better year than he had last year when the Oakland Athletics should have traded him. 93 games this year, 296 average, 25 homers, 75 RBIs. Like I said, before you told me about the extra years of control, I said it last year, I'll say it again. How do you not find a trade partner for that guy? How does nobody come calling? I'm sure people came calling for him. But now, like you said, with 3+ years of control left over, you said 2028. That would make a lot of sense. I just feel bad for the guy at this point. That's why I have him as an honorable mention, because this is a guy that should be right in the middle of a playoff roster, right in the playoff hunt.
He seems like such a Phillies power guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that was who I predicted him to go to. Him or them, the Guardians. Obviously Cleveland went a different way, getting Lane Thomas from the Nationals, which was a good pickup. But Yeah, feel bad for Brent Rooker because the guy is just rotting in Oakland at this point. And you bring up a good point. Maybe they do move him in the offseason. Or, maybe when they go to where they go in Sacramento, I think it is that AAA ballpark they're going to play in. You need somebody to put asses in the seats. So maybe he's the guy they hold on to. You can put him on all the tickets and the promotional pieces to go see Brent Rooker and Mason Miller.
Right. Yeah, they didn't trade Mason Miller either, which is another guy that was probably pretty expensive, I would imagine.
He got hurt, I think, like 3 or 4 games right before the deadline, and that pretty
Oh,
much tanked all of his. I think like he got hurt the night I think we did the trade predictions, and then like 2 hours later was out with an injury. I'm like, well, he's not going anywhere. They're
well,
gonna hold on to
you
him.
talked about Rooker and Miller. Maybe that's an offseason possibility, and
Maybe
they just get a bounty.
that would it'd be an absolute hole. That's at least
Yeah.
like 6+ prospects coming back if you put those two guys together.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the A's will be back. Maybe by the
Mhm.
time they're in Vegas, they'll be in the
Maybe.
playoffs.
Yep.
Maybe, but you never
Big
know.
maybe.
Maybe it's an Oakland curse. Maybe it's just like an aura, a stench
Maybe,
around the
yeah,
team.
they get out of there and then it's just nothing but
Yeah,
sunshine and rainbows
they just
afterwards.
rattle off like 3 of 5 World Series
Hmm.
in a row.
But
And
who knows? Yeah, so
but
like I said, honorable mention for Brent Rooker. Number 5 for me, I have the Chicago Cubs right now, fifth in the NL Central, 51 and 56, 6.5 games back of the third wild card. Some of their bigger ads, quote unquote, Nate Pearson from the Blue Jays. I think I've heard it Isaac, I've heard it Isak, I don't know. I'm gonna go with Isaac Paredes though, and a couple of prospects, I believe prospects in Ben Cowles and Jack Neely. Some of their losses, they traded Mark Leiter Jr. to the Yankees, who, like I texted you yesterday, my dad gave me a heart attack when he said the Yankees traded for Jack Leiter, question mark. I was like,
yeah,
nope. That would have been something though if they ended up getting a Jack Leiter for who knows what. They get Christopher Morel from the Rays, or give up Christopher Morel, excuse me, to the Rays, and then a couple of prospects as well. And Ty Johnson, Josh Rivera, Penango, and I think it's Hunter Biggie, don't know.
Hunter Biggie is funnier.
It is, yeah. We'll go with Biggie, Bigge. There we go. But yeah, like a confusing deadline for me for the Cubs because we talked about them a week or two ago where they said, we're on to 2025, we're looking ahead there, and to me that kind of meant, or at least I feel like it should have meant fire sale. You move everything that's not nailed down, like the Marlins, like the Rays did. I guess they went a little bit of a different. We're on to 2025 because I think Nate Pearson probably has some team control. I think Paredes does as well. So maybe they're kind of in that, as we talked about before with the Red Sox, buy now, but also sell off pieces, which I think is the dumbest way to approach a trade deadline you possibly can. Like pick one or don't do anything at that point. I'm surprised Jameson Taillon didn't go, but again, he was a guy with some team control. So as you said earlier with Rooker, maybe that kind of hiked the price tag up a little bit on Taillon.
It also
But if
just sounded like, side note, like the reports that pitchers were just like the prices on pitchers were just
well, it seemed like this year
crazy.
relievers were going for
Yeah,
way more than starters, which usually isn't the case.
crazy.
Usually it's the opposite. So that was a little surprising. But yeah, I mean, the Cubs also too kind of were put in a bad spot. Bellinger got hurt right before the trade deadline. I think he came back literally yesterday. So maybe a team could have traded for him, but that kind of took away one of their bigger price tags. I don't know, like the Cubs, I just feel like should have done more, especially if you tell your fan base you're, punting on this season. Maybe try to move a couple extra pieces,
Yeah,
from the
like
bullpen or rotation
the,
or whatnot.
the Cubs are interesting too because like they're at the bottom of their division, and the whole like Paredes move happens. I'm like, all right, maybe they want to like respectfully or yeah, make a respectable run. Oh my
Yeah. Yep.
God, struggle with that one there. To get a little closer to the playoffs at least. But like, who really cares if you're just gonna miss it? Like, because they're not like a White Sox. They're not like
No,
400
yeah.
games out of first place. Like,
Yeah.
they've won already.
Oh, to lose the rest of the way because they've lost like 18 games in a row or something
Right.
ridiculous again.
Like they're not like a White Sox or an A's or a Rockies. Like they have 51 wins. Like if things go well, they can maybe make some sort of semblance of like decency out of the post trade deadline era of this season. But like then you have the 2025 comments. Like
Yeah, exactly.
which one is it? It's
Mhm.
it's a little goofy, and by I don't even know if I should say a little. It's pretty goofy.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. My number 4 loser might be a hot take because they've done nothing but just beat the crap out of teams since the start of the trade deadline and after it, sweeping the Phillies, which was pretty impressive.
Right.
I'll give the
I'm just
Yankees
gonna
some
say this.
due. Go ahead.
Please do one of your like drawn out trade deadline TikToks
I
because
gotta find the time.
the Yankees as a loser, if you find time, you
Mhm.
could really get some funny Yankees
Absolutely.
comments.
Yeah, I would piss a lot of people off. You're 100% right.
Please, if you find time, please do
Well, I
it.
mean, The reason why I have the Yankees as losers is again Jazz Chisholm, who I didn't think was going to be a good. I thought that was a dumb trade. That was I like we talk about it every year. Oh, the Yankees are playing, MLB the Show. They're just putting the trade whatever on easy mode and getting every superstar player, all star that they can get. And then they end up losing in the ALDS or CS. And Jazz Chisholm to me at first struck me as that type of move. Doesn't really have a role in the team. Is he going to play center field? Is he going to play second base? And maybe they put Torres somewhere else. Although Torres said he's not moving up for second base, so that kind of nixed that. He played third the other day. I don't even know if he's ever played third in his entire MLB career.
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
It was
So
buzz that Nestor Cortez could get moved. I saw.
yeah, that was somebody said that might have been the next like Montgomery for Harrison Bader move from a couple years ago that completely blew up in the Yankees' faces. Would have been funny to see again. But
I
obviously they end
remember,
up
hey,
keeping him.
Nestor Cortez. Yankees fans never do this, but I heard Nestor Cortez was the real deal, like the big guy, the future.
Yeah.
A couple
Yep.
of years ago. I don't know. Now he's in trade rumors. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, they add Jazz Chisholm, who's worked out well. I'll give him credit. He hits what 4 homers in 2 games or something ridiculous like that. Mark Leiter Jr. They added their bullpen. They get Eniel De Los Santos from the Padres as well, and a couple of prospects. Don't give up a ton. Caleb Ferguson they send to the Astros. A bunch of prospects. Didn't really give up a lot in the Chisholm trade. So again, people listening might be like, "Well, how do you have the Yankees as losers then?" Because I didn't do a whole lot other than that. Like, there's a huge scare right now with Garrett Cole. I don't know what the latest is on him, but he was scratched last night, I think, for fatigue. Like, he himself said he's not been right. So that's kind of concerning if I'm a Yankees fan that he's not 100% ready
Yeah,
to
and
go
then
for a postseason run.
it's funny because you have the Cole stuff, and we don't know how severe it is. To my knowledge, I haven't really looked into it. And then you have the report that came out that they were scared off about Flaherty because of something physical.
No, I didn't
Like,
see that. So that's interesting.
yeah. So kind of tough sledding there, no matter
Yeah.
how you look at it.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, like, I would have thought they would have maybe been, and they were in pretty much all day until he ended up going to the Padres and Tanner Scott. I'm just sure they got, I mean, the Padres gave up a ton for Tanner Scott. So that's probably why the Yankees didn't end up ultimately dealing for him. But maybe they think Caleb Ferguson is a poor man's Tanner Scott. Good luck if that's the case. But yeah, like could have maybe used another rotation arm, especially with the concerns of Cole. You don't know if some of their young guys are going to continue their, the stretch they've been on. I don't know what Heel's been doing since the All-Star break, but I feel like he's had kind of a down tick. Rodon pitched well against the Red Sox the other day, but he's kind of been up and down this season. Stroman's always up and down. Like I feel like has never really been consistent these last couple of years. So there's still rotation concerns there for the Yankees, if you ask me. They needed a first baseman. I know DJ LeMahieu had like 6 RBIs the other night, but like, come on. Like, if you're a Yankees fan and you think DJ LeMahieu is snapping out of his 2-year-long slump he's been in, like, give me a break with that. Shortstop's kind of been a black hole from a production standpoint. Volpe's had some moments here or there, but I know there was a lot of talk of maybe the Yankees grabbing another bat to maybe fill that spot or just, have a platoon guy or just another, obviously, bat in their lineup. So I don't know. Like, the Chisholm deal has worked out so far, but again, to me, that just, it strikes me as like, hey, who's the biggest name on the market right now that we can realistically get? Jazz Chisholm? Okay, let's go get him because we don't really have any other plan other than let's try to fool our fans by getting superstars in here and see if we can make a run at it.
Yeah, and it's weird. It kind of goes against like the Yankees thing too. Because like they do go for superstars, but you do always, even some fans outside of Yankees fans are like, okay, like we're worried about the Yankees getting this guy that's top on the market, and they get a guy that's was seemingly on the market. We don't know how much, but he's not like a Jack Flaherty or like a Crochet or like any other big name that was like mainstream out there, like out there a lot. So
Yeah.
it is weird. It's working out for them. I think it's certainly a plus ad, but it was a little odd. Like there is a bit of an odd aura around it. Like just in terms of specific need, but he's definitely a plus ad. He's definitely like really good for them so far. So we'll see how it ages, but it was a little peculiar for the
Yeah,
Yankees
for sure.
overall.
Yep. And then there's talk too. I mean, as soon as this deal happened, there were a lot of people that were like, oh, he's kind of been a clubhouse problem. So how's that going to gel? I saw people kind of say, like, how's he going to gel with already one head case, as we know, in Alex Verdugo? Now, obviously, Chisholm has shown nothing of that so far because, again, everything's been going good. So I wonder if maybe the Yankees going in a little bit of a route again. Maybe some of these cracks start to show, but again, don't follow the Marlins, don't follow the Yankees, haven't followed Jazz Chisholm a lot, so I don't know what those kind of concerns are, and if they even come up. That might just be people talking out their ass like we see on social media a ton. So who knows?
Right.
Yep. Number three loser for me, Houston Astros, second place in the AL West, I believe, going into today at 55 and 51. They were half game back of Seattle when I looked last night. They gave up a ton for Yusei Kikuchi. Like, that was a huge package. Low Profito, rookie outfielder, has been good for them this year. Was giving them some first base production as well. They move him to the Blue Jays. They give up their number 9 and 13 prospects as well. And then, like I said, they get Caleb Ferguson from the Yankees. Like I said, I think they overpaid severely for Kikuchi. He's a good pitcher, but like, you shouldn't be giving up, you're a top 10 prospect and, a top 20 guy, in my opinion. Like, I feel that should have been able to be accomplished with maybe some lesser guys. And again, maybe the Astros don't care, when it comes to prospects, because they're in it for the now. But if there was a team that really, like, okay, going into the day, you need to address a position because it is glaring on your team. It's first base for the Astros. They didn't do anything. They were in on Yandy Diaz. There was, of course, talks about maybe Vlad Guerrero or Pete Alonso if the Mets were able to move him a couple weeks ago.
Like, they almost released Josh Bell. That's, and then he just goes to Arizona.
Yeah, I kind of in the same boat. I thought, like, that's maybe a name you go after. I feel like I'm drawing a blank. There might have been somebody else I'm forgetting. First base wise, but like Diaz was the big one. As soon as you saw his name come up, you're like, okay, the Astros are in on him. That's a definite need. That he'd be a great part of their lineup. Go and get him. They don't do anything. They're going to stick with John Singleton at first base, who's, I think, hit the ball decent of late, but that's not a guy I feel like you can rely on going into the playoffs. Compared to what the Mariners did, Mariners filled a bunch of holes, as we're going to see, spoiler alert, when we get to the winter side of things. And we've seen in this series against the Red Sox so far, Astros didn't do enough. Like, even that, the name I'm forgetting is Justin Turner. Like, that's a guy that could have played well in that Astros lineup, I feel, as well. And he ends up going to a division rival. So Astros didn't do enough, in my opinion, especially to fill a huge need. Maybe they think there's somebody on that roster that can fill first base and get them, enough production to, make a deep postseason run. But I just, wasn't impressed with, they kind of fall into the same boat as the Yankees, a little lesser to me, of like, okay, you filled one need, go do something else. You're right in the middle of a playoff, a division race at this point. And they just didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty bizarre structure as well going on here. But your next loser is really bizarre to me. Not bizarre like a dumb decision by you, like what they did.
Yeah, the Giants are my number 2, 53 and 55, fourth in the NL West. 4 games out of the third wild card, so they're not completely out of it, but I feel like if you ask a lot of Giants fans, they're probably like, we probably should punt on this year. And they did that to some degree, but not really enough, in my opinion. They gave up Jorge Soler in what is literally just a salary dump after, not even a full year after signing him. Give up Luke Jackson as well, because the Braves are trying to put together that 2021 World Series team again. Alex Cobb goes to
Soler. I love
Soler. He's nasty, and for a fact he's going to have 1 or 2 huge hits for them down the stretch. That's just what he does. He's a big time player, and big time players do big time things. The Giants give up Alex Cobb, who was hurt, coming back from a rehab assignment. So, what's he going to pitch for them? Who knows? And then their number 19 prospect overall as well. In the trade for Mark Canha, who, as we found out, was, bring him home, finish out the year as a free agent for, I don't know where he is from. Somebody tweeted at me when I asked the question. He's just from the Bay Area, so I forgot to look up where that was in California. They get Tyler Matzik, who I think's hurt as well. He was part of the salary dump for Soler, and not a whole lot else. Giants, to me, you kind of alluded to it, weird deadline. Blake Snell is probably going to walk in free agency. He has an option that he's 100% going to decline, especially if he keeps pitching like he's pitching these last couple of starts. Maybe the price tag was too high, or the number-wise, salary-wise was too high for him for teams to take, and especially if the Giants were going to eat Soler's contract, they probably didn't want to eat Snell's as well. But I don't know. Like, that's a guy I feel like you have to try to move the best you can, especially if you're not going to get anything for him in the offseason, because they can't qualifying offer him. He was qualified last year, so that automatically means he cannot get a qualifying offer for a second straight offseason. So they are going to get literally nothing for one of the better pitchers in baseball when he walks this offseason. And like I said, too, like, again, prospects aren't always all that. But just seeing a top 20 prospect go for Mark Canha, like, I don't know. Like, just, again, cool story that he goes back home. But, like, if you're the Giants, I feel like you probably should have tried to sell a little bit more. Matt Chapman's another name that came up. Some people thought maybe he could go to the Yankees, give them some third base production, but
that's another like Yankees name.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a guy that was fantastic 3 years ago, and now is kind of on not the Chisholm is obviously on the downward slope of his career, but that type of, like you said, that type of Yankee move. Yeah, you kind of said it. You were confused with the Giants as well. I feel like you probably share the same reasons I do. Just didn't do a whole lot to sell when they really aren't in the race, if you ask me, and I feel like a decent amount of people.
Yeah, you said everything I probably would have. So
Okay.
all good there.
And maybe it's a Giants team too, because they're not as old. Like they don't have the Brandon Crawfords, the Brandon Belts of the world that maybe teams would want in a veteran player for a postseason run. They're a younger team, so maybe they don't want to move on from some of these young guys. But like I don't know, like Yastrzemski's a name I would have maybe tried to move on from. I don't know if Wilmer Flores is if he's hurt or whatnot, but like that's a guy I feel like a team could have maybe coveted for a right-handed bat that can play multiple positions. So the Giants just not doing enough was surprising to say the least. And then number one, it's the obvious one, the Chicago White Sox, the worst team in baseball. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Will Fleming on the Red Sox radio call today. He said they've lost like 96 games in a row. Jokingly, of course. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it, not moving Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, those situations kind of weird and kind of mishandled by the White Sox. Robert should have been probably dealt before the season started. Because he's been banged up. He's had an up and down season, of course. But a guy that I feel like you should have been able to find a partner for will probably get moved this offseason. The whole Garrett Crochet situation is a mess. He I didn't see this. I didn't hear about it until last night. They said it on MLB Network. Was talking about it on their trade deadline show. He apparently was asked about it a couple nights ago or a week or two ago. And basically was like, whatever team I get traded to, I want an extension with. Like, I'm not going to your team if you don't extend me, to which I can't remember who it was on MLB Network, but was like, that's cool. You don't have that option because we're trading for you and we'll make the decision if we want to extend you or not. So you have no say in that if we're going to, give you an extension right when you walk through the door. And then also had a comment, something along the lines of like, he's not going to pitch out of the bullpen this year because there is maybe a concern with some innings for him. I think he pitched like 13 innings last year coming back from Tommy John. Was obviously a reliever most of his career. This was the first year he really got a chance to start. So maybe that scared teams away. I don't know, but a weird situation for him. And then the White Sox, catch some fault as that as well. If there was an innings limit on him, why haven't you been keeping a closer eye on that to, maybe get you to the trade deadline and him not be so far ahead in his innings and be like, okay, we can move him. A team will bite to get him down the stretch. So that was a weird situation for Crochet, not being able to move him. They do get a couple of nice pieces back for Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham. Eloy Jimenez, like you said, went to Baltimore. Other than that, like I don't. Kopech obviously goes to the Dodgers too, so that was a good move for them. But I don't know. The White Sox, I feel like, should have been taking the approach of the Rays and the Marlins of moving everything that's not nailed down. But it is the White Sox. How much talent is actually on that team kind of falls into the question as well.
Right. I mean,
what are your thoughts on the Crochet thing? Because like you said, you didn't really know a whole lot about the situation coming in now that I kind of very quickly ran through it. Your kind of thoughts on the whole situation with him?
It's a shit show.
It really is.
I don't know. Maybe he's a firecracker type of guy.
Maybe.
Kind of seems that way because of this.
I get you're having a good year, but like I just don't know. I think it was Harold Reynolds who had all the comments that I was talking about. I think he basically too was like, "Who do you think you are? This is the first really good year you've had. Now you're coming out with all these demands." Like, yeah,
it's not like you have like postseason experience. Like,
that's the point he was making too. Like, you haven't really done a whole lot in your career.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of maybe teams were just scared off and we don't really know all the details.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of those things too. It struck me of like maybe he a little bit of an egotistical side of it. Where like, hey, I've been talked about as the biggest acquisition on the trade market all second half of the year. So if you want me, like, you're gonna have to demand or get all these things from me. So maybe Crochet was a little too big for his head, if you know what I mean. Like, let it get to his head rather. All the rumors.
Maybe he's got possibly an ego. Maybe he's definitely got an ego. But
yeah, for sure, no doubt about it.
The winners, Ryan. The winners.
Yeah, the winners. I have number 5, the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, a team that sold off quite a bit. I thought they did a really good job of trading what they could. I think we talked about this too. At least for me, I didn't think they were going to realistically move Guerrero or Bichette. I think Bichette's hurt again, so they really couldn't realistically move him. But like Guerrero was the guy that was talked about, of course. Bassett they end up holding on to for the extra year of control, which makes some sense. But they did a really good job trading what they could. They moved Garcia, Kikuchi, Justin Turner, as we know, Danny Jansen, Nate Pearson, Trevor Richards, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. They moved 9 players and get 13 prospects back. That's pretty good. And the funny thing, too, I almost put the Twins in here as a loser. The Blue Jays trade Trevor Richards, who's got like a 5.5 ERA out of the bullpen, getting something back from him, good on the Twins for doing so. So maybe put them as an honorable mention as well. But also put the Blue Jays as or rather loser side of things, excuse me, for the Twins, because you put the Blue Jays in the winner section as well for getting someone to take a pitcher who has not been great in their bullpen, and maybe the Twins saw something in him, but interesting move there. But yeah, Blue Jays I thought had a pretty solid deadline for what their plan was going in and selling what they could.
Yeah, for the Blue Jays, like you hope to make the not the World Series, the playoffs this year, but it just hasn't worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So eat it is what it is. Try and rebound next year.
For sure. Yep. Number 4 for me was the New York Mets, third place in the NL East, 57-50. They have skyrocketed back into the wild card race. Number 2 in the wild card right now. They were one of the teams, like the Mariners, who we'll get to in a little bit. Again, spoiler alert, I have them on the winners list. Mets did a little bit of everything. They needed a power bat. They end up getting Jesse Winker for not that much. They get a couple of bullpen arms in Ryan Stanek and Huascar Brazoban from the Marlins. Again, Marlins are trading pretty much everything, so why not call them? Zuber's a nice depth add for their bullpen. And then they get Paul Blackburn, who was just activated off the 60-day injury list from the Athletics. Dealt a big blow over the Mets over the weekend. Kodai Senga came back from his injury. They've been waiting on him all season. And he, I don't want to say blew out his calf 5 innings into that start, but ends up leaving with a calf injury. He's done for the year now, so you need to fill that role somehow in the rotation. Paul Blackburn's a guy I feel like that could be pretty reliable, especially if he is healthy and ready to go, which all indications seem to be. So that's a good guy for their rotation to get. And again, really didn't give up a ton from the prospect. I think Ryland Thomas, an outfielder, was the best guy they gave up. So nothing too crazy there. Like I said, did a good job adding pretty much everywhere they needed to. And a team that has really caught fire. And again, like this is one of those teams like the Red Sox, I feel like, where you show that you believe in this team. They've had a little bit of a rocky start to the year, but have come on late. Maybe these moves energize them even more, and they end up taking the number 1 wild card spot and maybe make some noise in the playoffs. Because right now the Mets, like I know the Mets are clowned around a lot, but the way they've been playing and how they play the game of baseball, I feel like there's a decent amount of teams that probably don't want to see the Mets in the first round of the playoffs because they are a scrappy team, and I feel like it can beat you in a multitude of ways.
Yeah, good enough. I don't really have much else to add on the Mets.
Fair enough.
I don't know a ton about the guys they got.
All right, what about the Padres? Any of these guys? Tanner Scott was he was the big fish when it comes to the bullpen. No pun intended, obviously pitching for the Marlins. But the Padres, I saw some people say the Padres were losers at the trade deadline and I will not deny it. They gave up a ton. They hate prospects in that organization. Dylan Lesko goes in that deal.
Like
Adam Mazur.
The Golden Knights who trade every first round.
They really are. That's a great comparison. They are the Golden Knights of baseball because they do not like prospects in the slightest. They get Jason Adam, Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing, and Martin Perez. Obviously, Perez is a starter, but they mainly focus on their Martin. It says something that the guys traded.
Real ones know if you listen back in college.
Yep. I ate crow on that for 1 year and then was right back to being right. So I'll take half points on being right on Martin Perez. And I will take that to the grave with me. But yeah, I mean, the Padres, again, like the Red Sox, they clearly identified a need. They need bullpen help. They went out and got it with some of the better options on the market, like Jason Adam, and especially Tanner Scott. You put him with Robert Suarez in that bullpen, might be one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball. But again, they gave up a lot. And I'll give AJ, like, I fall into the side of giving AJ probably credit. Like, you know what you want. You're not afraid to give up prospects to go for the now. And I like that. It could come back to really hurt you in a couple of years. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if after all these moves, the Padres don't, win a World Series and make a deep playoff run. Somewhere down the line, they end up becoming one of the worser teams in baseball because they have no young talent in that organization left anymore with all these trades they make. But again, I'll give them credit for going for the here and now and going for it. Where are you at? Would you qualify the Padres as a winner or a loser? Like, what side of the coin are you on this?
I'm to be determined because like Perez is unpredictable. Adams seems decent. Scott sounds like one of the better guys out there. But like, I guess I don't know enough about the team around it to like fully give an answer. So I'm going to be like to be determined, like wait and see basis on these guys.
Okay.
One thing I did want to, take an opportunity to ask about, I'm going to spoil a little bit. You don't have the Marlins on here in the winners, and that's fine. Like, that's not like saying you should. The Marlins were a team that's interesting to me because I don't think a lot of people expected them to get Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers in the same deal.
Yeah.
And they made, they dumped Josh Bell. Like, that is what it is. The Marlins had a kind of interesting deadline with the Chisholm trade. You trade that Brazoban guy. and you have Tanner Scott. Where are you at on the Marlins? Like, if you were to pick one side, like, are they like kind of neutral, or like where would you lean towards putting them? Because that's a
No,
team.
I
The Stowers and Norby pickup really was intriguing to me.
yeah,
Well, they
it's
trade Chisholm, of course, as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I definitely would have if I did an honorable mention for the winners, would have had them in it. I mean, I could have honestly put them with the Blue Jays 1 and 2. I even put them over the Mets. Like they had like you said, a really good trade deadline for what they had to do, and again moved everything that wasn't nailed down, including a young outfielder in Brian De La Cruz. That was a surprising trade. They ended up moving him to the Pirates. But like you said, the fact that they get back two of the higher end prospects. I know Stowers isn't really a prospect anymore because he's had major league experience, but he was one of those first guys. As everyone jokes about, they all look the same. They all play the same position or have the same style to them. He was one of those guys. So to get him and Norby, who was looked at as one of the higher prospects in Baltimore's organization, I think maybe 5 when they traded him, and has had some success at the major league level. Like that was surprising to see, and a good job by the Marlins to go out and get those two guys.
Who tweeted like on like the 29th, he was like, just got my Norby jersey
Well,
finally.
not gonna work. But like that kind of the Orioles, it kind of falls into two of like, all right, you had that kid who could maybe break into the roster, but like we saw with Jackson Holiday, who did come up and hit a grand slam today, first major league home run. So kudos to him for that. But kind of the same boat of like, all right, you have all these young players. Like, where's Norby going to play? Like, he's going to be a bench guy. Do you really want that? And I saw some people say the Orioles as losers for the trade deadline. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't agree with it, but I also don't necessarily disagree with it because of some of the moves they made. Like, they added a couple of nice pieces. Like, if they get Jimenez right, he could be a good bat for them if he stays healthy. But as I texted you last night, he is the equivalent of the SpongeBob fish in the body cast meme, where he's hurt every year. Like I can never stay healthy. And then even the Marlins trade, getting Trevor Rogers, like that's a good arm. But for what the Orioles are now, like we talked about the Orioles last week, is the predictions of like, okay, if it was going to be a team that Scooble gets moved to, it would be Baltimore. If Crochet gets moved, it would be Baltimore because they need another guy to, put together a 1-2 punch with Burns. They get a couple of nice pieces, but not really that kill shot that we were, expecting them to get. Get a nice piece in Sir Anthony Dominguez for the bullpen, but he can be unstable at times. Has been iffy. I think he may have struggled in one of his games the other day. He pitched for the Orioles, so there's concerns there. There's questions there. But yeah, to double back on your question, the Marlins I would absolutely have as a winner if I did an honorable mention for them because they had again tough spot to be in when you're a seller, but they ended up getting a decent amount for what they gave up.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
On to number 2.
Number 2, as I said, I've alluded to it a couple times. Seattle Mariners, 57 and 52, 57 and 53, excuse me, after today's loss. The Red Sox, there we go. We updated it in real time. So now they might be 2 games, or maybe not even a game up on the Astros. I don't know what Houston did today. But like I said, the Mariners, I said it last week. I kind of eat my tongue on this one because I said it that it's kind of tough to address.
Eat your tongue, not bite it? Oh,
or bite my tongue. Yeah, I said it wrong. Yeah, not good. As I said last week, it's kind of tough to address every one of your needs at the trade deadline, and the Mariners came pretty close. Needed some offense, some hitters, consistent hitters in the lineup. You get a Rosarena, and him and Turner have both had down years as a whole, but have really been hitting the ball well of late. We saw that in this series against the Red Sox. Justin Turner killed them. Rosarena had a good, I think, first game. He had a couple of hits in, I want to say. So those are 2 guys that, good right-handed bats for the middle of your lineup. Yimi Garcia is a great pickup for their bullpen. He's had a very good year for Toronto. I guess Charwaz or Shawa, I can't never remember how to say that guy's name. He's always moved to the trade deadline. It feels like he's just one of those guys. I think he was moved from the Mariners a couple of years ago, but a good middle of the road bullpen rather arm there. And get a good prospect from Ryland Thomas as well. From the I think Mets I said earlier. Like I said, did a little bit of everything. A Rosarena and Turner should help that offensive, come out of their struggles they've been in. Rosarena will definitely hold down the fort until Rodriguez gets back. And again, the Mariners, they knew they needed to kind of outrace the Astros here, and I think they did a little bit more to prove that and try to finally win that or finally take that division away from Houston.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's always been Houston's division, and the Mariners, I think their fans could use a postseason run if they can muster something together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like they did pretty good.
For sure. And I mean, I said it at the start of the season when I did the preseason predictions. They have arguably one of the best rotations in baseball. So definitely didn't need to add. They could have added to that. Again, if you really wanted to hammer that home. But they got one of the best like trios in the league. So their rotation is definitely that's what's been keeping them in the season. Because again, the offense has been at the bottom of a lot of statistical categories. So their pitching's been phenomenal. Now you get some bats, excuse me, to go along with that, and you should be pretty good. Number one winner should be no surprise. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers. The rich get richer, to the point where it's getting like disgusting to see all these guys
Yeah.
going to the Dodgers. And I texted you like
Yeah, it is
would be a
disgusting.
it is, and it would be the one of the biggest collapses in sports, as I said the other day, if they don't win the World Series, because they are obviously they were the clear favorite from day one. Um, Now it's ridiculous how much of a favorite they are now, getting Jack Flaherty, Michael Kopech, as you said. Tommy Edmonds, a great pickup for them from an offensive standpoint, can play a lot of positions. So he'll platoon pretty much everywhere. Ahmed Rosario goes back to them, who was good for them a couple of years ago. Was having a good year for the Rays, and they get Kevin Kiermaier, who's obviously a great defensive outfielder. You can put him in late situations in games, use him as a defensive replacement. Maybe he steals your base in a playoff series. They're only getting healthier. Clayton Kershaw came back, I think, last week. I want to say Walker Buehler's coming back at some point as well. We know Mookie's coming back at some point, so they're only going to get better. They're only going to get healthier. And they didn't really give up a ton in any of these deals. Like, you have some prospects, as we've seen the Dodgers, they move out prospects and bring guys back in like it's going out of style. So no concerns there when it comes to moving any of the young guys they have that aren't going to make their roster. As I said, if they don't win the World Series, it will be one of the funniest things in sports, because this team is so loaded top to bottom, that, as you said, it's kind of gross at this point with with the amount of talent this team has.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it on an MLB roster.
It's mind blowing. Like,
I
like I
mean,
texted you when it
seen,
happened.
we've
Like,
seen awesome Braves rosters in the past years, but I don't know if they
true.
stack.
And
Maybe
those
they
awesome
do.
Braves rosters didn't win the World Series. Like, it was the year they lost Acuna. Obviously, they put together a good team that ended up gelling together, but from top to bottom, just
And one of their best players is on the Dodgers from those
yeah,
teams.
yep, Freddie Freeman. So again,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like, they don't really have a weakness right now, it looks like, especially with some of these guys again coming back from injuries. Did a little bit of everything, did what they needed to do, and again, if they don't win the World Series, like, shame on them, because they are so leaps and bounds above teams. But as we've seen in the playoffs before, the best team doesn't always win. You got to get hot at the right time. And, the Dodgers, we've seen in the past, they tend to falter in these moments. But, man, they put themselves in a great spot not to do that. You get a big arm in Kopech, like you said. Flaherty just helps solidify that rotation even more. Yamamoto was the other guy I was thinking about. He might be back at the end of the season. So you get him, Flaherty. Glasnow's been fantastic as a Cy Young candidate. Kershaw's back. Maybe they get Buehler back. Like, you see teams go away from a 5-man rotation in the playoffs, but like, if you're the Dodgers, why would you do that? Just roll with that, throw 5 absolute studs at teams. And, if you're a Dodgers fan and you're a Dodgers player, obviously, hopefully just bludgeon everyone to death in the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, that's a team that could lose like 2 games in the playoffs and we're to the World Series.
Yeah, if
Maybe
that.
like that team could just run it.
They strike me as a
But
team that, like, whoever they get in the like game 1, they lose like 10-2, and then are just like, all right,
I was
we'll
hoping
give
you
you
were gonna go
one
that
to,
direction.
yeah,
Like that's a team. Yeah, you
put the
you're like,
doubt
all
in
right,
people
like
of like,
they're gonna
all
crush
right,
this team, but they lose the first game. Like, are they frauds?
yeah,
No.
and then just like, yeah, we gave that team one. Now we're just gonna go beat the crap out of everybody.
Yeah. Very frightening team.
Mhm.
Thank God they're in the NL.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to run through. I have it linked here in the outline. Were there any other trades you can think of that kind of stood out to you throughout the day? Any moves that maybe didn't get, or players that didn't get made you were surprised by, or anything like that? Because I think we really hit on everything that was worth
yeah.
talking about. But I know you said the Jimenez trade was an interesting one for you for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Anything else that kind of stood out?
One of my big ones was Stowers. Yeah. So like we talked about the Stowers trade. I didn't expect to see him move. Uh the Royals made a couple moves. They got, I think, did DeJong have to change dugouts? I saw.
Yeah, he legit walked
Uh,
across the field. Yep.
they got Michael Lorenzen too. They're a team that's going to be competing with the Red Sox. Doesn't seem like they did a ton, but did a couple moves.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't really have anything crazy. Jalen Beeks is on the move. I saw when I
Yep.
was scrolling while you were talking earlier. I was scrolling this for a bit. Yeah, but like everything else, like pretty much status quo, like typical, nothing too crazy deadline type of moves. But
Mhm.
yeah, decent deadline overall.
Yeah,
A
I'm
lot of
glad you
stuff
brought.
came in at the buzzer.
Yeah, that tends to be the case. Like, you have, because we were still down the Cape on vacation when it obviously throughout most of the day, you get to like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and no moves have been made. It's like, all right, like, this is a little weird. Like, it's usually slow the first couple hours, but like, you tend to see 1 or 2 trickle in. And then 345, 350 hits, or I think the deadline was five. No, I always want to say four, but it was six. So we'll say like 540, 550. Like all the deals start coming in at 100 miles per hour. You're like, well, why couldn't these
Yeah.
deals have gotten done during the day? Like, why do you
I
have
don't
to?
know. Just
And
cranked.
even Breslow on the broadcast said it today, like getting down to the wire with the Garcia move. It's like, all right, like that's a deal I feel like you probably could have figured out um,
Yeah.
earlier in the day and save yourself a little bit of a headache.
Right. But
But
yeah, overall, I mean, not too bad. Not too bad of a deadline, and then this is crunch time. So
for sure. I'm glad you brought up the really quick brought up the Royals. I thought I could have put them in an honorable mention for a winner as well. I thought they had a decent deadline, getting a good bullpen arm. Really, the only other star pitcher on that Oakland team, Lucas Urseg. He's had a good year for them, so that's a good bullpen
that
arm. And
was
as
the
you,
name I was forgetting. Okay.
yeah, and as you
Lucas
mentioned,
Esig.
Lorenzen,
Every time I see that name, I think of his last name being Esig. I don't know
Isig,
why.
yeah,
I guess
it's
it's kind
close.
of
But yeah, two nice moves for them, as you said. They're trying to make a playoff push, try to outlast the Red Sox. So a couple of guys there. The one, as I texted you, that killed me seeing the Rangers get Chafin, because like that's the guy I would have traded out to get a lefty on the Red Sox bullpen. Didn't give up a ton either. The Tigers get back a couple of prospects. The number 27 prospect in the Rangers organization, Joseph Montalvo, or Montalvo, excuse me, and then Chase Lee, I think, is another pitching prospect for them. So not a ton for Chafin. He doesn't really ever like. That's why I wanted him too. We talked about that last week. Doesn't really ever go for a lot for a guy of his caliber, and he's been around the league, has pitched in big spots and big games before. So that one kind of stunk, but the Rangers end up getting a nice piece there. And then the interesting one too was a 1-for-1. Cardinals got Sean Armstrong from the Rays, and they got back Dylan Carlson. Like, when I said earlier about the Dodgers getting that Red Sox prospect that they'll probably turn into a superstar in 10 years, the Rays will probably do this with Dylan Carlson. Like, he was a guy we were texting about where I said, like, he's kind of fallen off a little bit, not really the top prospect he used to be. The Rays will turn him into like a 300 hitter with 20 homers and 100 RBIs in a year or two. So it would not surprise me at all.
right. Yeah, that's a name that stood out to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's about it for baseball. I'd
Yep,
say.
I'd say
A
so.
few Patriots things. Jabril Peppers, another internal guy, gets locked up. I don't have any problems with this deal. Um, yeah, I mean, he's just becoming a leader. I think he's been a leader for probably like a year and a half, 2 years now. Became a good fit pretty early, and I like him. I like his personality. I think the money is fine. Maybe more than fine. We'll see how he plays this year and beyond. But I don't see this deal really becoming a problem in any stretch of the imagination. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I'm glad he's back too. He kind of fills the like McCourty, Slater. Obviously, Slater wasn't a defensive player. But like that role, as you said, you need, some veteran leaders in this locker room. It's a younger team. Peppers is obviously seems like he loves being here these last couple of years. He's been very, I feel like, outspoken about that. Um, so I'm perfectly fine with it. It's been a couple of people I've seen that said this is an absolute steal money wise. And I couldn't agree more. Like, this is a guy that I feel like probably could have gotten a decent amount of money in the open market from the last couple of years he's had. But back here in a veteran caliber, leadership role, like you said, happy to have him back.
Yeah, he's like one of those guys like a Jawan Bentley, Dietrich Wise too, that's
For
becoming in
sure.
that
Yep.
category of leaders. Defensively, I got a couple um, updates on the defensive tackle position out of nowhere. Seemingly, Christian Barmore has blood clots, which is very scary.
Yep.
We've seen David Andrews deal with them in the past. One of the things that always comes to mind with athletes, obviously much different sport for me, is Pascal Dupuis with the Penguins back in the day. He was never really the same for his career. It might have just straight up ended his career. I don't want to speak in exact terms there, but I remember having an effect on him. Blood clots can be pretty scary. I don't know all the health factors that go into it, age, all different like health factors that go into it, but it's very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Wishing the best for Barmore. Just really unfortunate. Like right as you're getting it going in training camp, a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement. You get this news dropped on you. It's scary personally, and for the team, for the fans, for his family. But yeah, Devon Godshaw. It's good that you have that stability because you have a very scary situation. Potentially, hopefully not. With Christian Barmore, hopefully this can get resolved. But now you have some stability locked up at that position. Devon Godshaw has expressed a little bit of frustration. That gets done for 2 more years. But yeah, locking on the defensive tackle position, we're wishing Christian Barmore the best. Pretty scary stuff, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you lock up a piece. And Godshaw and
Hands away, yeah,
loading
hands away from the keyboard.
Loading
Head those down,
slowly.
hands up.
Just gonna
Hands away, yeah, hands
loading
away from the keyboard.
loading
Head those down,
slowly. I'm
hands up.
just gonna check the.
Is it not live anymore?
I guess we're back.
Okay. A little bit of a snafu there.
Let me just check the Twitter too that tweets out just for reassurance here.
All right. Do you want me to give my Barmore spiel while you do that, or do we wait to see if we're online?
All right, we're good. I think we're back. I don't know what that
Okay.
hiccup was. So
Perfect.
yeah, back to Barmore and Godshot as we're interrupted by technology and internet and stuff.
Shocker! What a surprise.
Yeah, I know.
Technology loves us. Technology loves us like the Padres love prospects. Yeah, the Barmore thing, like you said, it stinks for a lot of reasons. Like you said, you had coming off a great year, was looked at as maybe the Patriots' best defensive player going into this year. You mentioned it, got the big extension, which was awesome to see. So there was a lot of high hopes for him coming in, and I think he was going to obviously live up to that. And to see this kind of come out of nowhere, you mentioned it sucks and it's scary. I think the positive from it, is that I think right away Gerard Mayo was like, he's in good spirits. He's not even in the hospital, so that was obviously great to see. So you hope it's a fast recovery for him. But as you said, you never really know with this. You bring up David Andrews. He missed, I think, the entire season when he had, his blood clots, right? It was pretty close to it. Yeah,
that sounds
so
about right.
You hope that's not the case for Barmore, because obviously, again, there was a lot of high hope for him going into this season. But if that is the case, like, then it just becomes like, who cares about the football side of it? Like, you care more about the person side of it. You have him go back and get as healthy as he can. And, if that means missing the majority of the season, it stinks, but you got to do what you got to do. And like you said, now that kind of makes them go into a little bit more of a proactive approach with Godshaw, who, we've talked about in the past, not the biggest fans of. And again, we talked about, I think either last week or a couple weeks ago, we were like, dude, you're in a contract dispute. You don't really do a whole lot, so you really don't have a leg to stand on. You have to think that only was amplified now with Barmore being out. Godshaw's probably like, okay, now you need me. And the Patriots
maybe
obviously
that had something to do with it.
The
Maybe
Patriots
it's just
obviously
coincidence.
probably saw that too. So like, all right, we'll kind of kill this one bird with this one stone, but then obviously this might lead to another problem that we're going to get to in a second, with another defensive player. Godshaw, like you said, it's just, as much as we don't really like him at times, it's just good to have that option. It's not like you're not going to have to rely on like a 6th round rookie who's never played before. Godshaw's been here. He's done that. So
literally a 6th round, 2nd and 3rd year player. If like Sam Roberts is around,
yeah, exactly.
Been that 6th round guy. Yeah, but I mean, I guess the Godshaw deal's okay. Like, he just got to play better this year. It really underwhelmed us last year. But he can be a good player. The Judon stuff, it just feels more and more with time that this is going towards a trade. Just give me multiple draft picks for him, and I'm cool with it.
Same. Yep.
With or without him, this team is not a playoff team. So, like, I don't know if the bridge is completely burned yet, but maybe it's like 80% burned.
Pretty close. 90? Yeah. Yep.
He doesn't annoy me at this rate. Like, he's annoyed me in the past. Like,
I'm really surprised that you are not, because like I am getting close to being like,
I'm done with Judon. I want to make that clear.
Okay.
He's still in good spirits, like around the fans and stuff. Like, there's a couple like mic'd up clips I saw, and then he has this, like, something must have changed. Maybe he was holding this in for a while and like kind of putting on a smiling face, and it just kind of blew up because of something someone said or just a tick in his brain. You just can't keep this guy around. And I'm not saying like he can't be a positive, presence on the team in the locker room. I just think giving the state of your team and this negativity that's come out now, more so than just like kind of hinting at it and like making lighter comments about like the whole financial future.
Yep.
You got to trade him. Like, I'm not expecting the whole Judon Ayuk thing that people were talking about. But like there's going to be a team that's going to give you like a 2nd round pick probably for Judon, or like a 2nd and like a conditional 6th round pick.
Yeah,
and you're done.
Jump at that.
Like,
absolutely.
Especially if there's a good team out there that has like 2 2nd round picks next year. Maybe they're willing to give one up.
For sure.
You should be able to get a 2nd round pick for Matthew Judon. Maybe not because of the injury.
I take a 3rd.
Maybe a 3rd that can turn into a 2nd.
Yep.
Based off certain things. Maybe that makes sense with the coming off the injury to like a playing time thing for condition. I think you got to move Matthew Judon. I've spoke my piece on him. I don't like the whole bullshit recruiting thing he does. That I think has made the organization a less appealing place to play for. and I think is genuinely pissed off players that could have come
Okay.
here. I've stated my piece there. I don't know all the details, but I'm done with this. Like, I appreciate what he's done. I appreciate his skills and his willingness to be cool to the media, but like, it just this has to end. You can't do this all year. You can't have it looming over. You can't have the cryptic tweets or like
Hmm.
the thing he sent out today, like shooting down Diana Rossini's thing about her saying like they apparently made him a new offer. Like, I, I'm done with it. Go let him play for a contender. Like, doesn't seem like he needs to play for a contender. He wants to stay here, and he said he doesn't want to move. That was
Hmm.
also like a week or two ago. So maybe with this new shit, he's like, "Fuck it, I'll move again."
Yeah, how many
Um,
times can you keep saying that though? And then like
like
that, this is where I'm
there's
getting annoyed by it. Of like you keep
there's too
saying all
many
the right
things.
things, but
There's
then
too many things clashing here, dude. Like that was really stupid. The hand motions there, but you get what I'm saying. Like
you know,
it's too stupid. It's become too
button
stupid to the
heads.
point where like it's gonna combust and maybe it already has combusted as far as it's going to,
Hmm.
and you need to get draft capital for him and accelerate the rebuild a little more.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And like I love Drew Don, have since they signed him since day one. Um, but as we've talked about before, with the youth of this team, you need veteran leaders to step up, these veteran guys. And if this is one of your veteran leaders doing this, like imagine, like obviously not the same position, but imagine this is something that like rubs off on a guy like Christian Gonzalez down the line. Like you
A
see one
Keon White, a
veteran.
guy who probably
Yeah, that's it.
emulates
Even
things
yeah,
Judon
even
does
better
at the
comparison.
position.
Good on you for calling that because I couldn't think of any young guys in the defense to be
I
honest.
don't
Um,
I don't want this to linger all year.
yeah, and that was the other point I was going to make too. Is as you said, both in agreement 100% that they are not going to make the playoffs unless something drastic happens. This is you've already seen the cracks. You've already seen the blow ups, like what you have here in the outline with the Mayo stuff, the Wolf stuff. Um, they're going to stink. So this is going to linger on throughout the season. Like, say they get off to an 0-4 start, and the team's not playing well, the defense is getting burnt to a crisp. The tweets are going to keep coming.
Yeah.
The not backhanded comments, but you know what I mean, like the little digs and stuff. That's going to continue to happen. You have to. I can't even say get out in front of this at this point because you're behind the eight ball already. Um, if somebody calls you on Judon, you have to take it at this point because I think this is only going to get worse. Um, I don't think there's really any light at the end of this tunnel. Like, I don't think this is one of those things like we've seen in the NFL before. Like, not the same thing, but like Jonathan Taylor, I feel like is a good example of like a guy that was pretty pissed off. It
Yeah.
seemed like last year to the point where I don't know if you said it, I definitely said it, where I didn't think he was going to play a single down for them last year and ended up doing it,
Yeah, it seemed
which was
bad.
surprising. I don't think that's going to be the case with Judon. I think
No.
the bridge is too far gone or burnt that you're going to get anything out of him this year.
And I kind of worry, like, I'll understand it this way. I kind of worry if teams are going to want to wait towards the deadline.
Yeah. Yep.
Teams aren't going to want to do it right now. Um, you gotta solve this. And with Groh's proactiveness to, extend guys that have been around for a while, whether they're drafted here, a lot of them were drafted here this offseason, um, or brought in, like, you think if this could have gotten done for a guy like Judon, it would have gotten done. I think he makes like 15 million this year, so you're wondering how much more he wants on that next deal, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's around the same amount of money with different like financial structure that is holding things up. Um, it kind of goes against the whole philosophy of keeping internal guys and keeping guys that have meant something to this team, even when they've been bad. If you expect them to sign Judon, like
True. Yeah.
with the keeping guys around, and if you're having this, you think with Wolf's philosophy of wanting to reward guys that earn it and earn these extensions for this thing to linger on this long, that he would move.
Yeah.
Like Wolf so far seems like a pretty cut and dry guy. Like I
Pretty
think we're
much.
gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna see consistency with him, with keeping internal guys and upholding his message because I think he's done both of those things early on in his tenure. So I don't know. I don't think the Matthew Judon thing makes it past the trade deadline. I would be fucking stunned.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be at this point. Like I've seen some people argue that they can kind of get where Judon's because again, I think Judon though the player he is probably deserves to be paid similar to what other guys at his position are getting. But
Yeah,
then again, on the flip side of it, like you
coming
missed
off an
most of
injury, you're 30,
exactly
almost
you missed most
32.
of last year. We don't know what your you're going to come back and look like. You're getting older, so you're going to be getting slower. And now you're doing this. Like you're acting out again. You're getting into a fight with your first year head coach to the point where you have to basically get kicked off the field. Not a great look. Like again, I think this only ends one way. Like you are not going to, and now we say this, they'll probably out of nowhere they'll sign like a 3-year extension. But if I had to pick one of them, it's probably more so on the lines of like you need to get rid of him because this is only going to linger. And the thing too is like somebody has to be getting him to be like, dude, if you keep saying that like you love being here, like you got to show that. If you want to get traded, we'll move you, but you got to help us. You can't keep doing this because now teams are going to sit there and go, he wants out. We're not giving you anything for him. We know he wants to leave.
A lot. He needs to earn his way out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. With weird way to put it, but you're 100% right.
If you wait during the season, you can trade him in season before the deadline. If somebody wants to pony up, say someone loses a huge edge rusher, like Judon might be the first guy on teams' lists
for sure. Yeah, I don't doubt that in the slightest.
And if I don't know, maybe the market becomes more robust. Maybe if things don't go super well under Harbaugh, maybe Joey Bosa's out there. We've talked about the 49ers is fit for like Judon. As realistic as the Ayuk thing would be, and people talk about Joey Bosa going to play with his brother, like I don't know if you might have a competitor if the Chargers stink or if like injuries pile up and their season's punted early or at least before the deadline. I think you have to be very tactical with the market and how edge rushers are going to become available. Hassan Reddick could be traded. It seems like they have made some possible momentum there, but you never know. Hassan Reddick's name could be on the market too, because we never know how the Jets are going to be these days. We know what we don't know at this point with the Rodgers stuff, and him freaking out at Garrett Wilson and stuff. I'm really fascinated to watch the Jets this year. Maybe I'm rambling, but I think this is a breakup on the way.
For sure. Yep, I 100% agree with you.
Closing argument.
Yep. Mic drop. Done.
Mic drop. Any closing thoughts, Ryan?
Not really. I mean, there's obviously been a lot going on at camp. That was the Judon blow up was, one of just many of the bad things that happened that specific day. A lot of people have obviously talked about how bad the offense has looked. Any thoughts on that? Like I kind of put it as like, no shit, the offense is going to look bad. You have a new offensive scheme again, a rookie quarterback that is, going to have to take. It blows my mind that the people just want to think that Drake May's going to step in and beat Josh Allen from day one. Like, can we
people that
have
think
a
he's gonna be
brain?
Mac Jones? Like,
yeah.
Look, guys, I just can't be miserable enough to get upset about these things and go doom or gloom on Drake May. And some of these people are probably guys that weren't high on him to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah, they wanted them to get JJ McCarthy, who
I'm
sure you saw the video through a horrendous pick six in practice the other day in double coverage.
Yeah, like they got guys that have potential. Those guys that have potential. Drake May's had moments, but look, recently he's had some hiccups. Those are going to happen. Yep. They brought Jacoby Brissett in for a reason. No matter what quarterback they would have drafted, they got Drake May. He's not going to start the season. If you thought he was, I'm sorry. You're kind of an idiot. Unless he lit the world on fire. This is a camp where you see the system come together. And sure, you can criticize things. I'm not going to stop you from criticizing things. But if you're going to worry about things, you're defeating the purpose of what this season is. About things, you're defeating the purpose of what this season is. They are not going to make the playoffs. If they stink in training camp under a first-year coach at times and things are a little discombobulated, that is entirely normal. And this is not only a new head coach, this is a first-time head coach. These are guys on his staff that are coming from outside. Javon Baker is making great catches. He beat Christian Gonzalez one-on-one. Like Christian Gonzalez locked down KJ Osborne pretty well. Jalen Polk has been excellent, it sounds like.
Tyquan Thornton and who's the other one? Kayshawn Boutte have looked like actual wide receivers, which is kind of crazy.
Like, guys, like they're not going to be good. Like some of these people that are pissed about these things, I bet are people like, oh, they're going to suck. Like whatever, like whether they're cool with getting good draft position or they're like pissed that the Patriots suck right now for whatever reason. Like make it make sense. Make it make sense. They're going to be bad. It's gonna be rough at times this year. And there's gonna be good moments. Like we get to watch fun young receivers, and they might struggle. We get to watch Pop Douglas as a second-year receiver. I think Pop Douglas could break out pretty nicely. Like there are going to be good things. You have a guy that looks fantastic in Christian Gonzalez that's going to be a pillar of your secondary. This is going to be a process. You're going to add more picks by the time next draft comes around, and the next steps will come together. And next summer is when I can see people getting a little more upset. I can see people getting a little more upset about
Yeah,
things. And I
that
think there's more
clock's ticking
reasonable.
then. Yep.
Like it's maybe not be ticking, but it's ticked more.
Starting to
We'll,
go.
we'll need to
Yeah.
see. And it'll
Mhm.
depend on how they spend money before training camp and free agency. You know, we're really encapsulating things here, but I really do want people to just enjoy the season for what it is, because it's going to be a more enjoyable football team. They're going to be bad, but they're not going to be as bad as last season. And
Mhm.
we have a good foundation of young talent so far that should give you reason for optimism. It doesn't
For
have
sure.
to, but like let's just take the season for what it is. They're gonna be
Yeah.
bad. It's
Take
okay.
it for what it is, and what the alternative could have been another year of potentially Mac Jones and Billy Zappi. Like that's
Been squeaky clean perfect. No rookie
nobody
quarterback
has. Yeah.
doesn't make mistakes. It happens. The Patriots stink right now. They're gonna stink. They were so good for so long. Just live with it for a little while. Because when they stink and when they get another awesome prospect, whether it's a top receiver or a foundational left tackle, and they build again this offseason, it's gonna
It'll be
start
worth
turning
it.
around.
Yeah.
It's gonna start turning around. That's how I feel. And I might be wrong, but I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna be right to some extent.
Okay. I don't
Boom.
disagree with you.
How's that?
I like it.
Let's
Some fire
go.
at the end of the show.
Some fire, and postseason football is getting closer and closer. Week 0 will be within like less than a month in college football. Very exciting. Let's enjoy that too. Football's almost back.
Hmm.
You can still watch like the good players. You
True.
don't have
Yeah.
to
You
just
don't have
focus.
to watch the Patriots.
You
Yeah.
don't have to just watch the bad Patriots.
Yeah. For sure.
You can watch
Red,
Justin
Red
Jefferson.
Zone exists.
Yeah, you
There
can
are other
watch other
ways to
players.
stream
Like
games.
let's just be happy that like
Play
even though
fantasy.
summer's
Get mad
ending,
at that every week.
this is the inevitable point of summer where things wind down. Let's get excited about the good players, even if you root for a bad team. Hockey's gonna be back. Postseason baseball. Like, let's take it for what it is. It's the time of year. Like, this is a good time of year. Let's turn it into a positive. Every time of year, let's turn it into a positive. You should love the fall. The fall's the best
I
for
do.
sports.